Ah, thank you. Seth, Teresa, Adorama, thank you. Oh,
It's first day, guys.
first day in the job. Hello, hello. Seth, Teresa, Adorama, thank you so much for having me. Today I'm going to talk about one of the things that I can talk about for hours and hours and hours, which is the study of angles. And we're going to get very deep into it. It's not just making a photo look pretty, but it's actually much deeper than that. There's a philosophy I want to share with all of you, and I'm excited to get into the weaves of it, answer any questions that you might have, and really invoke the power of these tools to help you all take better pictures and also understand the world a little bit better through the photography world, the photography narrative. So, what are we going to be really talking about today is what this class is really about. As I said before, it's not really just about making a photo look pretty. We're going to be talking about the basics of why these things are important. We're going to be talking about the tools of that make these systems work so well and have and really push ourselves to really think in terms of those tools. And then we're going to do some live cropping with questions and answers. So I have a couple of images that I can't wait to share with you. We're going to crop them together. We're going to talk about the lines, the structures, the systems, the way that we can crop them in different ways. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to let Seth and I know. So with all due respect, let's begin. So what really is this class about? And the way that I see photography is that photography and film have been used to as tools of social influence forever, as perception tools, and sometimes, and more importantly, as manipulation tools. And I'm a firm believer that every choice behind a camera is communicating something, even if the person that took the photo knows it or not. They're saying something. And that's very important to consider in where we are today in life in terms of propaganda being incredible. We're all scrolling down Instagram. Everybody's trying to sell us something, sell us a story. What is the story? Why is the story being told this way? Why is the light coming in from left as opposed to right? Why is the person looking down as opposed to up? Why is he or she being shot from below as opposed to from middle ground or from above? All these things tell us something, and we innately kind of know why. And I would like to discuss get into the weaves of this and maybe talk a bit more about what is it that we're really seeing. Now, the basics are very simple. We're social animals. We're animals at the end of the day. And we seek for survival and safety. That's the bottom line. We run away from fear and we go towards safety. The way that I really look at us is just like babies trying to figure out, this vast land. And ultimately, the way that social media and a lot of these tools have been utilized, they've been utilized to get into our dopamine receptors, give us a lot of dopamine. And similarly, I consider photography a similar tool. Dopamine is released when we feel at home, when we feel safe, when we feel like we're getting what we want. And the same thing with the visual narrative. If you show somebody something in a particular way, you release their dopamine. You're engaging with them at a very, very chemical level. Now, why is that? Let's go over some of the tools that we develop as animals. First and foremost, eye contact and gaze direction. Am I looking at you? Am I engaging with you? It carries a different energy than if I were to be ignoring you or maybe like looking at you a different way or maybe looking that way. If I'm looking that way, clearly my energy is going that way. If I'm looking down, clearly there's something happening down, right? So I'm engaging my energy and telling y'all, hey, look, this is where I'm going and that's where I want to see and that's where I want you all to follow, right? We're very curious creatures. Another thing is angles, and that also implies body language, right? I can't tell somebody to be confident and then they do this, or I can't tell somebody to be, closed and then they go like this, right? Those are telling me two different things, even though I'm telling the person to do something. At the end of the day, they're doing something different that's showing me a different narrative, right? In fact, the body language is one of our first languages as human beings. So ultimately, we can tell if a person is confident or not, or we can tell if somebody is feeling something or not from their body language even before we're even able to have a conversation with them. And that's very important because in photography and film, body language is absolutely everything. So how do we maximize that body language to make sure that we're really telling the right story? Another thing, shapes, pattern recognitions, right? Now, when we think of shapes, we're like, what are you talking about, a building over there or whatever? Think about it when we were animals, when we were mammals. You saw a mountain, and that mountain, every time you saw it, you knew you were close to home, you know? Or when you saw this like pair of bushes or something, you knew that that's where the bear lives, so you had to stay away from those bushes. Ultimately, these are patterns. And so how we've evolved, now we're living in a city, we don't need to run away from bears, but at the same time, we're running towards something. So now, although we're not really running away from danger, we are still utilizing those tools as a way of going about our day, going about our world, and also going about a narrative that we tell people, hey, this is a building that explains New York, you know, a Chrysler building, or this is Paris. If you close your eyes and you see this shape is going to be the Eiffel Tower, you know, it's a shape, and it's explaining you about the setting in which you're really in, and that's very important for the photography narrative, for the film narrative, for the visual narrative. Another thing is color psychology. You know, we think about it. Green means lush, means healthiest, means food. Red means blood, means danger. You know, blue means sky, means water, means thirst, right? Although these are very elemental and basic things, we shall not take them for granted, especially when we're communicating with a lot of these things. You know, we utilize shapes and lines and shadows, but we also utilize colors and pops and darkness and lightness. And these are also tools that we have to understand how to manipulate in order for us to tell the right story in the right way. Talking about light and shadow, you know, light and shadow develop from our threat detection. Now, as we've evolved, we can use them in photography or film, such as, you know, a high contrast means danger and mystery and scary and like, I don't know what's gonna be in that shadow. Soft light is safe, it's approachability, it's calm, right? And how do you see that translate into commercial photography, which is what I mostly do is, if you want to evoke a sense of peace, you know, you light it very well. Even the shadows are underlit, but you're not able to see like dark, punchy tones. You're able to see something that's a little bit more soft, a little bit more calming, a little bit more controlled. And that's telling the viewer, hey, you're safe. Hey, this is calm. Hey, welcome home. You know, you can be comfortable with us. And that's something very important to consider. Another thing is proximity. Are you shooting with a 70 to 200 and you're taking a very close picture of somebody, or are you using a 14 millimeter and shooting from here and the person's going to be over there? That tells me a completely different story, right? Are you shooting from below or from above? You know, while utilizing a short or a telephoto lens is telling me two different things. The closer you are to a subject, the more humanity, in my opinion, you're able to see, the more you're able to tell in their eyes what they're really going through. And I think, although we can't really explain it, there's something very nuanced about the importance of that. And then the wider you go, I tend to think it shows more energy. You know, it shows more of like a holistic experience as to what the person is going through in this specific setting. You know, that's where the body language is very, very important. And last but not least, symmetry. And that also goes back to order versus threat, you know? If I can control everything and if I can make sure that all of my village back in the day is organized and I know where to find the water, I know where to find the food, etc., and everything is in its right place, I'm calm. But if I come in one day and a tiger came in and just destroyed everything and everything is a mess, guess what? I'm going to be living with a lot of anxiety, right? And all that also translated into photography, because we're telling a story. And if we see something that is very symmetrical, guess what? It's telling me that I have control over my environment and that I'm able to manipulate it, and it's okay, it's safe. It's a safe place for me to be. And if I distort it, and sometimes we do it on purpose with shift angles and all that, we'll get into later, it's telling me, oh, whoa, this is different. I have to wake up. I have to be a little bit more caffeinated when I consume this imagery. You know, what's going on here? It's making me feel something that's waking me up. Why is it waking you up? It's because it's telling you, hey, it's not so much of a safe place here. And, you know, living in risk can also be rewarding, which I'll get into a bit later. Any questions or comments so far? Doing good? All right. Now let's give you the basic examples that I think everybody knows. So obviously a low angle, this image was shot by Neil Leifer, another Sony ambassador. Low angles turn somebody into a hero, you know? Why is that? You're a baby, you look up at your parents, you know, the tall people, the strong people or whatever, quote unquote, in the village tend to nurture you, tend to take care of you. And we grow up with that perspective, you know? When you look up, you're looking up at someone, right? The next thing is a high angle. This is W from Harry Potter. And they portray him as, you know, as that, you know? He's just, you know, a little bit weaker in the character hierarchy, nothing wrong with that, but the way that they portray him is like, hey, you're a child, I shall protect you, right? Then tilt. This is a famous Quentin Tarantino shot in Pulp Fiction, but that tilt essentially creates or highlights a tension in there. You know, they're going through something, something's happening, and once again, since it's not organized, since it's not symmetrical as much, it's giving us something of a little bit of an anxiousness, like what's going on there? I have to figure out, I have to solve this problem. And then center frame. This is Wes Anderson, who's known for his center frames. And essentially that signals orders, safety, control, and importance. You know, something that we spoke about a bit before. One thing we have to know, and by the way, I'm just adding a bunch of angle studies as I go through, just to show you the title is everywhere, but it still makes sense. You know, I hope it does. There's an organization amongst all this mess. One thing I have to tell you before we move on is that we're very curious creatures and we're always looking for the answer, whatever answer that is. And your job as a creative is to give people questions in order for them to go home and try to find the answer, or like try to find the answer as they're going through your image. Make people involved with your imagery as you give them questions. And I'll show you what the questions really are in a bit. So I was thinking about the tools, and I have to begin before I even show you all of these little tools with something very, very important that means dear to my heart, and that is it's motion. One of the definitions of motion is that it's a key characteristic of a living thing. In fact, the key definition of a living thing is that they have motion. And what do I mean by that? Is that music, for me, reflects motion in the best of ways. And one thing, I studied opera for about a decade. I sang professionally, and I did a lot of music theory when I was in high school and college. And through it all, I came to realize I learned more from music as to how to shoot photography than I've actually learned from photographers or even movies themselves. And you might ask, how? You know, music is not a visual language. And what I've come to realize is that music and photography, they carry unbelievable similarities. And let's get into them. You know, first and foremost, from the get-go, from the molecular level, they begin in waves. And the way that music is controlled, the way that music was invented, is that music is organized sound. You know, we figured out while playing with sticks and drums back in the day that, oh, look, if I keep a beat, this sounds kind of good. It sounds kind of comfort. It sounds like I can control the sound, right? The beat is mathematical. That's why it's a beat, right? I can control it. And the beat kind of matches with this wave. Photography is pretty much the same. You know, we all begin with a mess, you know, whatever it is we have in front of us. And our job is to find the rhythm. We love symmetry. We love finding the answers to things, as I said. We love asking the questions, but also finding out how we can be, how we can develop an answer. And so organization and systems equals safety at the end of the day. When we get control of a system, we get safety. When we get control of music and are able to manipulate it in our way, we feel like we can really explore our feelings. And same thing with photography. Now, a couple of things that music and photography have in common. They both have movement, you know, chord progressions versus visual movement. Now, the thing about movement, which is so beautiful, is that music, I guess let's talk about music first. movement is cool, but it really works. It really has an effect when you balance it between harmony and dissonance. Why is that important? I didn't think I was going to do this, but now I think I have to do this to just really portray the point, right? I'm going to sing happy birthday to you, all right? Watch this. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Does that make you feel something? Happy birthday, dear Erick, right? You need something more. You need the dissonance. Erick. Happy birthday to, right? That adds it, right? But the thing about it is that when you find that the dissonance led you on a story, right? The happy birthday to is actually very dissonant. And if I were to stop right there and move on, in your soul, you'll be singing, you. You just want to find the answer. Yes.
Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. So it creates like repeatable pattern of boredom, So we need to like get rid of boredom in the next like.
Exactly, right? So if I say happy birthday with one note, you're gonna be falling asleep. Life is about the widths and ups, When you look at music, when you look at these things, life is all about ups and downs, and that's what makes movement. That's what creates movement. Similar to photography, we have dissonance. What is dissonance? Everything around you is dissonant. Your whole job is to take all of these elements and put them in a way that is organized for you to feel like you're in control. That's literally it, Risk, ultimately, risk is a part of life, and it keeps life interesting. Imagine, as I said, and as I sang to you, happy birthday with one note. We need the risk. We need to go in ways that are uncomfortable. And ultimately, when you compile them all together into a place we can control, we actually have structure, right? The things that you see here. Music, they have a G clef, they have an F clef, they have, like chord progressions, they have like keys. These are all systems in order for us to control the narrative of how we want people to experience our music. Similarly, in photography, we have the rule of thirds, we have the Fibonacci sequence and all that. These are tools. These are not meant to be rules. And let's get a little bit more into them. Okay, finally, the tools. Now, I actually recommend, you see all these tools, I don't even know some of these. But what I do know is the patterns that make all of them. So if I were to fix a photo in my mind, I know that it's going to fit the pattern of a lot of these. So ultimately, what I recommend is you pay attention to the main tool, which is the rule of thirds. Now, as I was building this for you today, it is said that our eyes go to these top two red dots. And truthfully, yes, but again, these are tools. These are not really the Bible as to how you compose a photograph. So I actually look at these four squares as equally important because they all play with and against each other to create the story you want to tell. Additionally, I've come to realize that, when you look at things, sometimes you're like, okay, this is important, and everything in the middle doesn't matter. I actually disagree. I actually think that everything in the middle really matters, and I'll show you an example in a way. So when you see this, that to me is a better representation of what you're seeing. You're seeing essentially 5 ways to tell the story here, and essentially 5 ways to tell a story here. When you shoot horizontal or vertical. Let's go through some of these things so that I can really go through them. Right, so we put this rule of thirds in here. We have, what do you think is the main subject here? Is it Mr. Met or is it the globe in the back? Mr. Met, right? You know why he's the main subject? Because he's Mr. Met. Well, the context is very important, right? But the reason why he's the main subject, I've come to realize, is because he's the dissonance. He's the T before the dough. He's the happy birthday to. He's the to. And all you want to do in this life, you. He's the you, So you is, it's already written. It's there. It's home. It's comfortable. What's comfortable here? The globe in the middle. It's there. It doesn't do anything for me. It's pretty, it's comfortable, it's home, but it doesn't add the little spice. The spice is added by Mr. Met. And much more than that, I added movement there, so I have him levitating. All of a sudden, I'm trying to figure out why is he doing that? I added just a little bit more spice so that instead of him just looking straight, he's just doing something and he's just chilling. And that just adds more element of drama to the story. So I just gave you a lot of question and you kind of don't have the answer. And deep in your soul, you're looking to go back home. You're looking to make this feel yours. And so that's what makes photography so special is because, or film in general, is you have the ability to push and pull these strings. If we can continue observing this image, obviously, Mr. Met is centered there. We've also utilized that. And now we're talking about two main subjects here, right? Main subject number one, Mr. Met, secondary subject, the world. Additionally, however, I've come to realize that there's a lot more elements in this image. Well, I guess we created a pattern, we created a box, that's our center point. All of a sudden, I'm seeing it as a shape, not just Mr. Met and the world, but I'm seeing them as a combination. There's these trees in the back, and they kind of all push energy towards the center, right? People will say that without Mr. Met, the world would be the center, right? But the minute that you add a Mr. Met, you see how he's not aligned perfectly in the middle? As I said before, he's a dissonance. So he's the element that's causing drama in the photo. Now, I bring all this up to say because ultimately photography, cinematography, and the visual narrative boils down to finding creative visual patterns to make people feel safely intrigued and curious. That's literally all you're doing. You're not solving for cancer. You're not like out here trying to cause a riot. You're just out here to tell beautiful stories in a way that makes people feel curious, in a way that makes them feel alive. As I was singing Happy Birthday to You the first time, I don't think any of y'all felt alive. None of y'all looked alive. But the minute that we added the last part and you sang with me, you felt that connection, that human connection that happens when we dance with the unknown, when we're able to just utilize the tension and home to bring together a push and pull of energy. We're sharing together an energetic conversation through art. That's really what we're doing. I'm giving you questions which I'm also trying to resolve in my mind. And whether you agree or disagree with me, that's what makes the conversation happen. And that's something very important for us to understand. So these are tools to help you find patterns. That's literally it. You know, sometimes I feel like a lot of ego comes in when you know, cinematographers are like, oh, like I'm a master of compositional. That is not that crazy. It's just figuring out shapes. That looks like a circle. That looks like a square. Let's put them together. Let's find some like relevant ways that we can tell the story, and go right ahead. Figure out some lighting, the production value, the shadows and all that. Those are different elements that help you compose a story. But honestly, that's all. It ain't that crazy. It ain't that crazy. So as you see the world, look for patterns. You guys want to work on an example? Okay. Thank you, team. Woo! All right. I'm going to bring y'all back to being babies again, all right? Work with me on a very elemental perspective. So I arrive on set. The minute that I arrive on set, I look for elemental recognitions. And I'm using these words to just bring it back to the basics, right? Patterns, shapes, foregrounds, textures, empty spaces, bold colors, lines, shapes, whatever it is that I can utilize as a tool to frame, right? Obviously, you're shooting something or somebody, right? So you have to also think of the subject. And why this line goes up and down is because they both work in tandem. I'm thinking of my subject as I'm thinking of the patterns outside me. You know, am I shooting one subject? Oh, okay, then this wall would be enough. But if I'm shooting 20 people, I'm gonna have to find a different setting for that, right? Because the wall won't be enough, or whatever the case may be. So really try to find a balance as to how to frame them together. The way that I think of my subjects is actually like shapes. So if I have one person, it will be a long rectangle. If it would be probably 5 people, I think of them as a square, right? And so what happens is that allows my brain to stop overthinking and think of it in terms of a mathematical equivalence of a piece of home, you know? How can I take this square and put it with this, all these different rectangles and all that, and all these different noise that kind of looks like a whatever over here, and then put them together in a way that gives me calmness, that makes me feel like home, that makes me feel at peace, that makes me feel like, you know, they're being represented in the way that I would want to represent them. Am I shooting them from below or above? You know, do I want to show respect to them? Do I want to make sure that they're looked at as, you know, more energetic, whatever the case may be? Think of them in patterns. I guess I got ahead of myself, but pattern recognition. Make conscious decisions to use background elements to be pro-subject, not taken away from subjects. One of the mistakes that I see photographers or videographers do all the time is that there's too many elements in the frame. There's too many stories being told. You know, I'm seeing this conversation happening in this side, but then there's a bunch of other things happening in that side. So all of a sudden, that's taken away from this story. Instead, how can I move away so that this element is a little bit more to the left? I'm not really seeing them, and all of a sudden I have some calmness in the back so that I'm able to concentrate on whether it is this conversation people are having on film, or like this you know, jump that this dancer is doing in this frame, etc. Right? So make sure to always frame with intention. Make sure to always look at your background to be of equal importance as your subject, because they dance together. And if the background is taken away from the main subject, then you're not really highlighting the main subject as well as you should. You're not giving the main subject as much respect as you should be given it, you know? So I find this rectangle, and immediately I'm like, okay, I can put it kind of in this square, you know, this square right here of a wall, this window kind of thing. Like, I feel like the subject looks really good in there, but it's honestly a simple photo, you know, doesn't really do anything to me. Now here is where angle studies come into play, because I told you to look at your surroundings as shapes. And so I start just tinkering with it, and I start like moving my my angles to kind of just create a little bit more of that just like push and pull that we were talking about with a happy birthday song. Like, I don't want to just give you the answer, but I'm also not going to give you a happy birthday with just one note. I'm going to have to give you some spice, right? We're going to have to give you the dissonance. What is my version of dissonance? You got to love a good tilt angle, a good Dutch angle. And so I did that, right? And so what happens is that kind of created this beautiful kind of like little pattern there. And so what I did is I just like recomposed and made this corner of this window or this glass just be the center point. Can you see my mouse? Oh yeah. And essentially I'm gonna kind of put my subject, who's a model, I guess, like in the middle here, and then just create this little beautiful evenness in the middle. This right here, this triangle here, is gonna break that and is gonna create a little bit more dissonance. And then I shoot it. And that's what I came up with. You know, it could have been a cool photo, regular angle, but the simple play on that, in my opinion, added so much more dimension to the image. You know, it added movement. Even though she's just going like this, there's two forms of movement here. There is her action, but then there's also the movement of the world not really being cohesive with the definition of how we see the world, right? And why is that so important? Well, as I said before, we humans are very curious, but we're also, we like to have control of everything. As a photographer, as a cinematographer, your job is to use this discomfort to have that conversation with your viewer. And honestly, this discomfort kind of, I think, is making you have a bigger conversation with this image, you know. And ultimately, once we add a little, you know, angle check in here, it seems that everything is working just fine. And funny enough, I didn't really think about all these lines going here and all these lines going there and oh my God. No, I just thought about it in terms of shapes, and the shapes gave me a tool of which I utilized to take this photo. So it wasn't that aggressive. It's not rocket science. Patterns are literally everywhere, everywhere. You can find a question and you can find its answer everywhere you seek. And that's why I started doing angle studies. It was right after the pandemic, and I was shooting commercial photography forever. And I just kept asking myself, like, well, like I think I nailed down the commercial photography system. They want a perfect picture. Nothing is ever wrong in the picture ever. Like the lines have to be straight, it has to be beautifully lit, it has to be 45 down, like the math of it, right? But what happens with it is it becomes stale. Although you can add some dissonance to make it feel good, ultimately it's not really inspiring you to look out into the world and say, oh man, like that building that I walk by every day, like it's kind of cool. It's kind of fire. I never really noticed like the red lining on the windows, you know, like that can that's a really cool element. And so what I started doing is going to random places. So the first one was in Frankfurt, this one at LES, Wall Street, and just finding patterns that are everywhere all around us that we tend to not see. And my thesis was this, and maybe you can like agree to disagree or give me your thoughts on this, but my thesis was this. For example, this corner here, it's a random corner. There's not really any story of it, you know, or like these buildings are just buildings, they're just there. But I'm gonna utilize them as just a background and make my angle do the talking. Why am I gonna do that? Because my thesis is the following. If I flip my angle in such a way and I make you feel something, then by definition, that angle carries importance, right? And if you look at it, you're like, oh, this is weird, like blah, 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 blah. Well, you're feeling something. So even if you hate it, you know, or even if you love it, the whole point that is making you feel something. So after doing this a while, it actually proved my thesis correct, that angles are of incredible importance to tell the world your story, but also to engage with the world in a much more present and non-passive way, you know? Now, let's crop some photos together. Now, before I do that, I just launched my new website today. And if you go to herculesnewyork.com and enter golden ratio 100, you get to download this PNG pack of all these angles that you see here, so you can put them on your photos and find patterns. It's really cool. There's like, 10 angles there for y'all to be playing with. Once again, I don't want you to use this as a crutch. These are just things to put on top of your photos to help you crop better, to help you see patterns, to help you see, balance of subjects. But yeah, have fun at it. All right, let's crop some photos. The first two are from a Alpha Industries campaign that I did approximately 7 years ago, but it was one of my favorite photo shoots because we got to shoot in the World Disney concert hall. Now, it's a cool photo. I like the framing. Obviously, it's a little, like there's well, let's check the lines first, right? So immediately what I'll do is I'll begin with rule of thirds here, right? Where are my subjects? I can see that this line here is a little bit higher than her. It's a little bit low. This line is not parallel with my rule of thirds line, so I think I'll make those be the first changes that I make. So that, and then I'm probably gonna go here. Now, as I said before, all these tools are just tools. They're not the answer, right? Because the correct way, some people might say, is that I go and I just bring this all the way down. right? And put her in her head here. And low key, that kind of works. That's cool. But in my opinion, I'm giving her too much power here, and I'm kind of not like, what is happening over here? This is like, there's not really a thought to this. We gave all the thought to her, but we haven't really thought about this side. I love this line here, and maybe there's a way that I can align the line in the middle here, and that gives it, in my opinion, again, a much more balanced perspective, right? Additionally, with leading lines, right? This line is essentially just going directly towards her. So it is adding a lot of importance towards her, right? When we look in terms of leading lines, what is this line also doing? This line is also giving energy, is pushing energy towards this way. This line is also pushing energy towards her. So she already has more than enough lines and shapes to really highlight her as the important subject in this composition. Additionally, what I love about this image is that obviously her black coat really contrasts everything else. So she has more than enough importance already. So I can't afford to take some importance away from her. What are some other things I can do? I can actually just like, if I really want to get into it, maybe I can crop it this way. By the way, I'm just doing this on the spot. I'm just talking to myself right now. So look, and so what happens is, it's not rehearsed. So maybe I'm gonna do something like this. Why did I do that? Well, before, this wasn't really doing anything for me. And it was actually taking away maybe 0.5% of my intention, of my energy this way. So I wanted to kind of tighten it up a little bit so that I add it as an element, but it's not taking away as much, right? Additionally, I'm using this beginning here as a leading line to let me know that it came from somewhere and it's going somewhere. But it's not really that important, right? It's just an additional little speck of information to just help me narrate this story. Okay. This line here is a little bit, I don't know if you can see it online, but this here is probably 0.3% not straight. It actually has to be like that. So let's fix that. But then I fixed that, and all of a sudden this one's like 0.3% not straight. So what do? We're just gonna play with the photo. Oh yeah, we're gonna do it. So I'm gonna go here, and I'm actually gonna balance it out. And dope. And then we lost the leading line over here. I'm gonna bring that back right now. Now it's interesting because the more I work on this photo, the more I realize, like, you see, she's not really in the middle of the rule of thirds, but I still find it like a pretty congruent photo, you know? And in terms of this, I'm actually, you can look at this as a shape, you know, she's in the middle of that shape. Yeah, I think that would be my final product. Anybody has any questions or concerns? Amazing. Okay, now the cool thing about this is that once you're able to understand and analyze photos like this, you can actually recrop them over and over and over again. Because, all right, this is for the website, but the client is like, Eric, we need this for social media right now. And honestly, like for social media, it ain't looking like it's it, bro, because this is literally what's happening, right? She's like all the way over here or whatever. Like clearly she's not as important. So we're gonna have to crop it for social media now, right? So let's do another thing. I don't wanna lose these lines on the side. I really like them. However, at this point, if I were to crop, I can either crop it this way or I can either crop it this way. Let's try this one first and let's see if this one works. So this is cool, but something interesting happens here. This is a shape. This we can consider another shape. This can consider another shape, and this other shape. This shape right here is too much in my opinion. And in fact, I think it's just like, it's crossing the border of being like a secondary subject, you know? So you can, what I would do, honestly, I would just like clean it up and I'll just go like this. Because what I have just done, and let me know if you feel different, this one here really highlights her. I would give her like probably like, yeah, the main subject energy. But in here, although she's very highlighted too, this kind of does take away. This leading line right here is too thick. So I just decided to move it out of the way, and that's what it is. Now, the interesting thing about this crop for Instagram is the following. You know how for the website, we were focusing on the horizontal lines? For this one, we kind of have to be focused on these vertical lines. And this vertical line right now ain't it. So I'm just gonna crop it a little bit. And that can kind of work. Let's actually play around with it. Oh, you know what? It's not vertical, it's gonna be vertical. So I'm gonna like push it a little lower. Dope. Oh, boom, done. Yes, question.
So someone's asking, when you took the photo, was there a reason why you took the angle for the white diagonal to be going through her head? I usually try to get the subject to have a blue sky behind her.
Oh, that's a very good question. So the answer is no. I think if I were to redo this photo, obviously it was taken forever ago, right? And if I were to redo this photo, I would have loved having her in the middle of this triangle. That would have been my perfect setting here. This was like in the moment, we were going through so many takes or whatever. Now it's interesting because this diagonal line actually does create a lot of tension. So it does work, but if I can redo it, I'll put it a little bit more towards the shadow. But it works, you know.
If that was just a studio shot with just her face, cropped completely just a face, that would work. There's no reason that line go. It's not like cutting through her neck. It's
Facts.
It's geometric. It's right on her face line.
Yeah, I guess it works. Damn. Okay, we got Instagram photos for days out of just one. I'm telling you. Whenever you're bored, just go through all your photos and recrop them.
Because it's right on her face
The
line.
best.
It's perfect face
Wow.
line.
See, I got a bunch of cool ones here. Thank y'all for making me feel validated on this one. Swag. All right. Let's move on. All right. So I chose this image. Same campaign. The other way. I was where the model was sitting. And the interesting about this one is that it's already a little, there's a lot of elements to play with, right? I created him in a shadowy way. This is more like fine art. This one did not make the campaign, but I edited it in like an edgy way. It's already edgy. People will say it can be already done in this photo, but I just want to explore some options. So let's explore some options here. Let's go with leading lines. I see this big shape over here. Let's talk about the elements here first and foremost. We have about 4 elements in the background, 1 main subject. So let's go through all the 4 elements. The first one I see is this wall here. The second is this wall here. The third would be this highlighted floor. And then the fourth would be this shadowy side here, right? Let's do a crop. Let me just go off the rip on this one. Easy crop. I'll go like this. Rule of thirds. Exactly in the middle. Boom. Put him in the middle. That's fire, right? Easy. What did I do? Use this as the leading line. Created a little bit of tension because he's not straight, right? He's a little bit bent. Some people might have not even noticed, but your brain knows. Your brain knows that's not okay, and your brain is trying to look for the answer, and you're out here wondering, why is this photo so engaging? I've just told you the answer right now. You have a little bit of tension, and you're like, oh, damn, if I can just flip that photo, and by the next thing you know, you've spent 10 seconds on this photo, and Instagram is getting ads out of that, Okay, next. We can go for, make him be the lead figure. Maybe add some tension. Yo, off the rip. I should have practiced these cuts, but it makes it funner doing it this way. Maybe this way. Does anybody see what I'm doing? I'm adding tension in multiple ways, actually. So I'm using this leading line to create almost like a matrixy kind of vibe of like the world is like going sideways. We have these two variables here. I think the beautiful thing about recropping, sorry, I'm going all over the place here. The beautiful thing about recropping is that every time you recrop, you have different elements that you're working with, because now it's become this side of the photo against this side of the photo, with him being the main subject. There's still that slight movement in which he's not straight. It adds an element of suspense. It's making you feel like there's something that I need to solve in this image. And yet we still have some symmetry because he's exactly in the middle of, now he is, exactly in the middle of the line here. He's following the rule of thirds. Where's his boots? I guess like this in general, it doesn't need to be straight, it doesn't need to be perfect, but he is pretty well positioned in the photo. It works, you know. Let's say client calls me and they're like, we need this for a website. Boom. One thing that you learn to do really quickly when you shoot commercial photography is that you need to leave a lot of space for logos, a lot of space for copy, a lot of space for ads, whatever the case may be. And so when you shoot, you tend to shoot wider because then you're able to work with a photo just like I'm doing right now, recropping it and resizing it and all that stuff. This right here works really well. Obviously, if you really want to be perfect about it, we can probably go like, there's no such thing as perfect, I guess, but kind of like this, where you have rule of thirds line right here. This line right here is connecting symmetrically from the middle here to this line over here. Maybe you have him in the middle there, even it out. So then he's taking this whole perspective here. That works for me. Any questions or comments so far? Seth, what would you do on this one? Wow. Yes, let's give me some crops.
Said that brands and companies reach out to you through your website. That's how you started getting potential clients, or it's just like.
I think it was Instagram at first. So your question was how I was talking a little bit earlier about how a lot of my clients have come from my website. And it's always a funnel, right? I think social media is the most powerful tool in my arsenal. So I would post all these pictures that you see me cropping right now. I would create so much intensity that they'll have to hit me up, you know. So they'll hit me up via that. But the important thing about a website is that that's where you put all your gems. That's where you put all the photos that you're very proud of. And intentionally kind of what I've done is I've marketed myself for the first 6 years of my career as a commercial photographer. So people knew when they were going into my website that that's exactly what I was doing, you know.
Specific like hashtags to target your audience for like companies?
Did I use any specific hashtags to target my audience? I think more importantly than that is the content you put out and the consistency of which you put it out with, right? And once again, like we humans are very perceptive, right? So if I am Nike trying to hire you, I want to make sure that you're going to fulfill that role. And so when I go to your website, I expect to see Nike quality photos. And if you haven't worked with a Nike, what you do is you hit up like a shoe store that you have in your neighborhood and you're like, dude, can I do some photos for y'all? And, you know, like, let me just get my portfolio up, you know, and then you do a Nike spec shoot from those Nikes. And if you're doing enough times, it kind of starts to look like the brand, you know? Once again, like it's a communication, right? Like visual language is a language, you know? So you have to speak these brands' language in order for you to feel at home in that territory, and they can feel at home with you because they're investing in your art. All right, did that answer your question? Of course. Yes, sir.
So at this point in your career, this was about 10 years ago or so?
About, oh, when you put it that way, damn, that is about 10 years.
My question for you is, the angles are very particular for you at this point in time. How much of it was conscious effort? How much of it was feel? Do you feel like retroactively you look back at it and discover it?
Wow. Your question was, in this career, at this point in time when I was shooting these photos, which was about a decade ago, like, did I know all these things, all these systems, or did it came naturally to me? And the answer is it came naturally. But I am 100% certain, as I look back and with that story of the music that I had to tell you, music taught me rhythm. Music has color, right? When you're telling, for example, a lot of my voice teachers will say like, oh, I need you to sing a little brighter. What does that mean? A little wider in your mouth and a little like tone is a little bit sharper or whatever. I'm singing a blues song. I have to sing a little bit more blue, a little darker, right? What does that mean? Tone it down and all that. So I understood the language of colors and the language of creative description. And when I translated that into photography, my first question was, how do I want to make somebody feel? So I remember like at one point I just had these 3 like editing packs in my Lightroom, and they were fall, winter, and spring, summer. And so anytime I would shoot a fall, winter campaign, I used the fall, winter set, which was more cool, more like, like toned down on the colors, like a little bit unsaturated. And then summer would come in and I'll just like brighten that orange up, put a little bit of highlight in that yellow, like make it feel more alive, make it feel more lush. So to that point, I think photography really was benefited by my music studies ultimately. And then when I look back, I think all the systems were already there and I can recrop and actually see what I felt, but now I can add the system language into it. And that's why I'm sharing all these systems up to you, because it's like they are available to you. And the thing about it is that whether you're using it or not, these systems are still being, they're still at play. They're still happening. You just haven't taken advantage of them. And so the whole point of this class is to make people be aware of how they communicate so that they can communicate their ideas more effectively. Because ultimately that's what you want to do as a storyteller, right? This will be my last tangent and then I'll go back to editing the photo. The way that I see the visual narrative is just like writing, is just like music, in the sense that in writing, you can take 1,000 words and move them all together or whatever and then create a tweet. You can take these same 1,000 words, move them around, and then create a poem. Take the same 1,000 words, move them around, and then create like the Iliad or like Homer, or a Shakespeare like book or something, right? It can be something that lives on forever. And that's the same thing that happens in photography. You can take this visual language and create something for a regular content that's going to expire in 2 days. You can create an ad, or you can create poetry, or you can create a philosophy. Or you can tell somebody like, look at this. This is really important to me. We tend to forget that we humans think in stories. We're story-driven creatures. And when you look at photos, you're being narrated a story. So the question to you is, what story do you want to tell? Any more questions? All right, let's keep cropping, baby. Okay, my guy, Aaron Gordon. This is an easy one for y'all. Center, right? How do y'all feel about this picture?
His free throw form is bugging me.
His free throw form is bugging me for sure as well. Right? Yeah, there's movement in there, although it's very still, right? Yeah, so I guess we'll break this photo down and make it see what works and see if we can add little elements about it. So unfortunately, I'm a perfectionist. It comes with its pros and its cons. Its cons is that like I'm never happy, but its pros is that you see the little thing and you want to change them, right? So let's talk about the big pictures first, then we're going to change little things and see if you caught them as well as I did. Okay. Let's reframe it really well. Perfect. We got the tension here. Let's look at the lines, right? If we were to go down and just look at these lines at the bottom, I don't know if you see these here, but they ain't it. If you look at the lines over here, for example, although like it's not as even, the basketball court is also not as even. So let's like fix it, right? Let's actually also crop this photo for Instagram because I want to post it, right? Boom. So all of a sudden the crop changes the whole dimension of the photo. What are some ways we can crop it to the best of our ability? Well, first and foremost, the most important part of the shape is here, I think. It's his hand throw. There is the basketball net over here. It's his face, it's his form. So I will probably make this be the middle, right? First subject, secondary subject, and then maybe the third. All these would be different elements, tertiary, like quaternary subjects, etc. Right? Additionally, what I've noticed is that this line over here and this line over here are also pretty much not even. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip it this way, just a little bit. Now, that is unnoticeable, but it's noticeable. You know what I'm saying? All of a sudden, actually still not perfect, because what happens is, I think I was shooting with the 24 here, and like this was I think it was a little bent. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just probably going to, don't tell Sony this, but I was shooting with the Canon in this one. It was their camera. Okay. Okay. And so what happens is a Canon lens. Sorry, I was shooting with it. Okay. Now this is a little distorted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and actually look at the distortion parts. Let's vibe. Was it this one? I think it's this one here. Okay. Bob. I'm probably going to reset this. Okay. And here's something to say. All right, so that looks even to me. How do y'all feel about that? I can actually pull out a little bit more. Then these lines over here are bugging me, so I'm actually just going to crop them. They're just not it to me. That works. Now, if you really want to be crazy, this is where too much editing can go wrong, and I'm about to show you this. So in a perfect world, I would probably do something like this, where I would kind of like, you know, really like level it up, blah, 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 right? But notice, I'm just a horrible example, but I must speak of example, right? Keep that the same. Well, great lines in the back, but then his body looks way too warped. Basketball is essentially useless, and you just lie to absolutely everybody. This right here is propaganda, ladies and gentlemen. We don't want that, you know? So what I do and what I try to achieve is keep the realness of the photo, keep the authenticism of the photo, pull it and push it here and there to make sure that I polish the photo, right? That's our version of editing a book or editing our poem, right? Switch a word here, change this verb with another verb, and make, you know, whatever it is. Similarly in photography, just switch little tiny things to make sure that the photo speaks its best without really manipulating it to such an extent that it destroys the whole storytelling, you know? Okay, let's go for some levitation. This was an Adidas campaign for the NMDs 2, probably 6 years ago or so. First and foremost, I came in to this creative direction knowing full well nothing below the last third was going to be used. So when you see this, it was done on purpose, right? Why was it done on purpose? I shot it very wide so that I'm able to crop. I also shot it very wide so that the sneakers don't get distorted. This was for Instagram, so I can just go right ahead, do it at 4.5, 4x5, sorry, and then we can just begin cropping, right? Very easy. First subject, secondary subject, empty space, beautiful evenness here. That's it, right? Thoughts on this? There's not a balance here. There's more sky in this side than it is in here, so I'm just gonna move it a little bit, making it more even. Easy, right? And if you really want to tighten it up to maximize I'm like, that can probably work too. Now, something interesting in this photo is that, I don't know if you guys kind of see a triangle here and a line. There's this like energy that goes this way, and then it comes out that way. And then there's this line of evenness here. So what this line, this fake line here is giving us symmetry, is giving us peace, is giving us calmness, is making us feel like, oh, I can see this in real life. It's not threatening, it's safe. And these lines here, they're adding the tension that we need. This main character is looking this way, this main character is looking that way. Internally, the animal in us is being like, where should I go? Should I look that way? Should I look this way? That adds the tension. One thing that I wanted to speak was choosing the right photo, right? Sometimes we take photos and we're like, oh my God, which one is the best? This is, in my opinion, where these tools really come in handy, but also where your experience as a human will give you the right answer. I'll tell you, actually, let me ask you all a question. Which photo do you think is the best out of these three? To the left. Left is number 1, middle is 2, and the right is 3. 3 for you? Which one? There's no right or wrong answer. 1, 2. Oh, I love this. All different answers, and that's what makes photography.
Whoever's phone that is, can you silence it, please?
You have an alarm going off?
Oh yeah. No worries. Okay, so let me tell you which one I think is my favorite, and I'll tell you why. And maybe we can agree to disagree on this, and it's completely fine. Sorry?
What's the audience's answer to that?
A lot of people said 3. I got some 2s and like 1 that was 1. And so we're gonna go through all of them, and I'll tell you what I think, right? This one, the cool thing about this one is that the energy of this main subject is going down to the bottom line of the rule of thirds. This energy is also going pretty much that way. There's a line to this. It's pretty even. There's a triangle side in this. There's this congruence here with this shoe. So like this part of the line, like this second half here, is kind of taking away a bit from it, but not to say it's bad. I think it works, right? This second one here, these both shoes are together. They're one entity, and they're showing you that you should look this way. In terms of photography for sneakers, actually, 45-degree angle at this level is best. Why? Because you're able to see the sole, you're able to see the top, and you're able to see the side panel. You're able to see essentially what makes a shoe a shoe. Constructively, commercially speaking, I think this would be the best one. There's like a line in here, and if you were to like add a little tool in the back, you'll see that this makes for a beautiful triangle. So it's a very even photo. You feel very calm and at peace with this one. Third, and to everybody's answer, I wouldn't choose it. Although y'all aren't wrong, photography is photography. Live your best life. But I'll tell you why I wouldn't choose it. This one here is looking this way, but it's not really looking down. You see how it's looking like a little bit further back? It's like if I were to be the shoe, I'm like, you know? And this one here is looking completely the other way. It's like looking this way. It's showing it, right? And the interesting thing is that here, you can, to a point, look at these as 2 subjects, as opposed to here when they look one. These are 2 subjects. And this one, for example, is not really giving me any information that I would want. And in fact, it's taking away from the information from this one. Why? Because it's telling me, look, I know that the main boss is looking that way, but you should kind of follow me. You know, you should kind of look this way. This sole is not really giving me any information. And then this is very shadowy, so I'm not really able to like take anything from it. So as opposed to being utilized as a second subject that highlights the first subject, such as in the second image, in here, I feel like this one might be fighting this main subject just a little bit. You know, it can create tension, but in my opinion, I think I'll stick with the second one. But there's no wrong answer, and so we all won. How are we doing with time? Oh, damn, I kept y'all longer than expected. Can we do one more? What is a good one more? Oh, from our last Adorama gig. So essentially, it works, right? But I need to let's spice this one up. Where's this one going? I think it's very important for you to see that before. This one's gonna go to Instagram. I wanna spice it up, so what can we do? Let's look at some lines. Maybe that works. How does that look? It's cool, but I think it's telling me everything I want to know, but I kind of like want to, let's use leading lines. Let's make her be the leading subject of this line. Maybe if we were to go like this, she's balanced here. Her toe is beautifully pointing this way. Rule of thirds is working quite well. This is highlighting her dress. This is highlighting this angle here. Maybe we can bring it up just a little bit. This line here is going from here essentially that way. This rule of thirds is here. I mean, fuck, this can kind of work. And yeah, any questions, comments, or concerns? Anyway, yeah, but you know, have fun with it. Ultimately, these are tools. It's not that serious. Think of photography in terms of shapes. Make sure that you respect your subject, and make sure that ultimately, listen, like on some serious note, like we are propaganda makers. We make propaganda, and your job is to go out there and make propaganda that inspires, that unites, that brings people together, that makes people feel beautiful, that makes communities feel listened and heard. And with that, thank you, Adorama. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Teresa. It's been a pleasure.